Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great day. Good to see you. So we're here in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and we are going to talk about doing Nefra and Dash, and doing it as a healer. And so we'll go over a guide on healing Nefra and Dash. Now, because it's nightmare operation, there's some things that you have to be aware of. And so we'll go over everything. We'll go over the stats, we'll go over the gear, we'll go over the build, and we'll go over like thought process on the individual fights. And then we'll actually do the fights and talk about what it is that you need to pay attention to as a healer, what you can completely ignore as a healer, and then areas that you might run into a problem. But so for the first, what we want to talk about first is the gear. And so for healing on an operative or on a scoundrel, it's going to be exactly the same thing on a scoundrel as it is on an operative. The magic number that you have to worry about is your alacrity. You want to basically make sure that you get your alacrity over 5,431. That will put you into the 1.3 GCD. You could have 2,054 to do a 1.4 GCD, or you could have 13,531 to get to the 1.2 GCD. But for our purposes here, we're only going to worry about the 1.3 GCD, which is reasonably easy to get to. You just basically have to focus all of your gear, most of it on alacrity. So you have to make a little bit more than that 5431. On this character right now, if we look at my gear, my alacrity, I have 5608. So I'm over 5431, and that's good. I could try to min-max to get myself closer to 5431 by increasing my crit on a couple of the augments that I'm using, but I'm not going to worry about it for the most part. You know, like right there, I could swap that alacrity augment out for a crit augment, but it works. In order to do this, all of this gear, this 344 gear that I have, is basically alacrity. And everything else goes into crit. We don't need to worry about accuracy at all because we're not attacking anything. Now, we will have spells that do damage, like incidentally, but we aren't DPSing, so we don't need to worry about it. When you get into like a flashpoint, you still need to DPS, so this build wouldn't work for a flashpoint. But in nightmare operations, or if you join a raid group and you are healing for that raid group, 99% of the time you're going to be healing. You're not expected to DPS at all. So you'll even notice that on my bar, all of these abilities are heal abilities. I don't even have any DPS abilities slotted. Again, this isn't PvP. This isn't a flashpoint. We're doing a nightmare operation. Our main job is to heal. We need to basically make sure that we can pump out as much healing as possible. So we don't worry about accuracy. If you were doing PvP, if you were doing flashpoints, or if you were doing even like story mode ops in the group finder, you could keep your accuracy, and that would greatly decrease your alacrity, obviously. But you know, if you were just running around casually doing story mode ops, it wouldn't matter so much. But for our purposes, this is, you know, where we are. So we have 5608 alacrity. Our crit then is 2334, and our accuracy is 0. The gear that we're using, we have, our rating is 343. We have, like I said, all 344 gear ricotta. We've gone to the fleet and done all the upgrades, and we're using primarily alacrity and crit augments. I don't have any gold augs. I'm using a serendipitous assault and a focused retribution for my relics. For our gear, legendary implants, we're using Tactician and Aggressive Treatment, and for our tactical, we're using Critical Surgery. You could also use Diagnostic Probe, and for a legendary implant, you could also use Field Medic, but my experience has been that using Tactician and Aggressive Treatment they give me really like the best overall, especially this Aggressive Treatment, because this will turn one of our DPS abilities, Toxic Haze, into a group heal that you can stack on top of the other group heals to just get out a whole bunch of healing very quickly. So it's great. This critical surgery tactical I have also found to be the most useful, simply because it makes a crit heal on anything that I try to heal that's below 50%. And that's really when you need it. So that's what I found to be the best. This particular character that I'm on is a biochem character. So you can see that I have all of these infinite reusables here. And you want to, if you're going to join a raid group and you're going to heal full time, I would highly recommend doing this, making yourself your crafting skills as biochem, and then take bioanalysis and diplomacy as your offs and get them all to 700. This would allow you to manufacture all of these stims, and these are the golden infinite, so they're reusable. So basically you put them on the bar, they become a cooldown, a DCD, or you know, something. So there's my heal, almost 50,000, and now that'll be up again in a minute. This advanced triage adrenal I use basically when I'm healing. It'll just boost my healing by 20% for 15 seconds, and I can line that up with whatever I'm doing in the raid at the time. It's just really super useful. The other thing to keep in mind too is that on an operative and on a scoundrel, primarily most of our heals are tied around a resource that we generate, and that is called upper hand when you're on an operative. It basically is tied to you gain an upper hand in order to use some of the abilities. A good thing to keep in mind is Kolto injection will always grant you a tactical advantage. So if you need one, you just do a Kolto injection. Now there is sort of a way to go over like which heals are best at which time, and we'll go over that. But we'll take a look at the build first, because we need to select our abilities before we start talking about like how we're going to use them. So whether you're in Sawbones or whether you're in the medicine operative, your selection will be the same. They'll just have different names, but you'll get the gist of it if you look through the list with me. All right, so we will take a look at this build here and talk about the specifics, why we made these decisions. So at level 23, you have to make a choice, and unanimously the best choice is Kolto Burst, which basically allows you to select yourself and then do a heal that will heal 8 allies around you. This basically is a super strong heal, and it will allow you to heal the group. The only downside to this is that you actually have to physically target yourself in order for the heal to work. So if you target somebody else and do this, it does not heal anybody but that target. But if you target yourself, then you'll see both of us will get healed. The other thing to keep in mind with Kolto injection is it costs 20 energy, and it's got almost a 2-second cast, even with my alacrity being so high. It's 1.73 seconds. So it's rather slow. So if you're not quick enough to target yourself and you just accidentally like targeted the tank and do this, it's really an inefficient way to heal them. A much better heal for a tank would be this Kolto infusion, but we'll get to that. So at level 27, there's a few different things. I don't really ever use this noxious knives or overloading shot, so I can't think of a scenario where that would help. If you're PvPing, you use debilitate. In operations, clever countermeasure is going to help you, because basically it's going to give you evasion when you use. It increases the duration of your evasion by 2 seconds, and activating evasion grants you a tactical advantage. So it's going to be super useful, because tactical advantages are our main, like the resource that we use to get off our biggest heals. So having another source to generate those is always useful. We get recuperative nanotech, and then the next thing we're faced with is a decision on which stim to use. What we're using here is nanotech stim, healing a large group in an op. We want our stim boost up as much as we can get it, because this will stim boost basically will allow us to gain a tactical advantage immediately. It grants us 10% alacrity to casting for 15 seconds that stacks on top of our existing alacrity, so we cast even faster. And it also grants enduring Kolto when it's enabled, which makes our Kolto infusion or Kolto injection activate instantly. So we want as many of these as we can get. By having this nanotech stim, anytime that we cast this recuperative nanotech, and basically each target affected by that, the cooldown on our stim boost is reduced, and we can actually watch that in real time. If we do, you see, we can actually make this cooldown go quicker by activating this ability here. So this is the cooldown that we're watching, and that's the ability that we're using to cool it down. Now it only really takes off like 5 seconds, but since it's a 1.43 minute cooldown between use, it adds up. There you can see it just jumped down to 55. And, you know, we're fighting a boss. We need this up again. We still have 45 seconds. Well, here we go. We hit this, and now it just jumped down to 37 seconds. So you can see it actually does. It starts to add up. So it will make this stim boost come back much quicker, which is what we want, because we want to keep it active as much as we can. And so as a result, you can see recuperative nanotech then is going to be an ability that you want to keep up on cooldown. You basically want to use it on cooldown. It will heal a group around whoever the target is. Generally what I do is target myself, you know, because usually I'm standing in a group of people. So usually the heal that I'll do on the other healer and DPS that are around me, the RDPS, is I will do this recuperative nanotech around on me, and then I'll do all this other stuff, generally running, you know, this and this on the tanks. Some fights though I'll change that, and I would actually use recuperative nanotech on the tanks. But so you get the gist. These two are linked because of that choice that we made. Now you could, if you were PvPing, right, you want to take tactical overdrive. The reason that you want to take tactical overdrive if you're PvPing only is because it will make you completely immune to pushback and interrupts. And there are certain instances when you're PvPing, like when you're trying to capture a node, whether you're trying to plant a bomb, where being immune to interrupts and pushbacks can help you succeed at capturing the node, at clicking the lever, at planting the bomb. Like, you punch that, and then you're good to go. But otherwise, I would say you're always going to use this stim burst. If you didn't want to think about it, or if you were in casual where you weren't really punching stim boost constantly, you could technically use this tactical effectiveness, but it's not as handy as having this stim burst. The next choice is at level 51, and you have to choose between Infiltrator, Advanced Cloaking, or Chem-Resistant Inlays. These inlays are 5% damage reduction. It's going to let you survive more. Obviously, you want to take that. Advanced Cloaking you could do if you were PvPing. Infiltrator you could also do if you were PvPing. But for Ops, you're going to do this Chem-Resistant Inlay. Also for Ops, the next choice is generally accepted as the best, Endorphin Rush, because if you run on a power, that's going to give you more power back. Obviously, that's great. If you're PvPing, Evasive Screen is good. There are certain fights where maybe you would want to take Med Shield because it would give you a bit more healing if you were in a fight that wasn't so mana intensive, but that you needed to, you were taking a lot of ambient damage or something like that. Somebody could make an argument that in Dash, where you're taking all the Sandstorm damage, that Med Shield would help, but I have found personally that Endorphin Rush is always the best one to take here, so this is usually always what I take. And that goes the same for the next tier. At level 68, always 99% of the time, Hollow Traverse is going to be the go-to. It's going to be way better than anything else that you can take just for sheer functionality. You can Hollow Traverse when you're in stealth. You can warp to a monster. You can warp to a friend. It adds a nice speed boost to get out of something, to move out of a telegraph on the ground. It's just mobility in MMOs, it's always really an S tier thing to have. So there's no reason not to have it. While Flashbang is good for PvP and some mob encounters, it might help. I think Hollow Traverse is just better to have. And then Infiltrate, obviously, there are circumstances where you may need to use this, that it would be handy, but generally, Hollow Traverse. And then for the next level 73, you've got Evasive Imperative, Jarring Strike, Blow for Blow. So this one here, generally, again, the best for general use is this Evasive Imperative because it's going to make your evasion come back quicker, and that will keep you alive longer. You could do Blow for Blow if you wanted to do a Reflect. So for like Nefra, if you wanted to reflect her twin Nightmare attack, you could do that then when the tanks turn the boss to the group. And as far as this middle one here, Backstab, Lethal Strike for 3, that would be like PvP specifically. So generally you're going to take this Evasive Imperative and then call it a day. With this loadout, you'll be really set up to handle just about anything in your operation, for whether it's story mode up to Nightmare. You'll be set to handle everything fine. We need to go back and talk about Kolto Burst, because prior to this the last round of updates that was done, this was a go-to ability for healing. It just was a massive group heal. You just run in, target yourself, and just spam Kolto Burst, and you would just basically heal everybody. But that got nerfed, so it no longer does the massive heals that it did. So now it's situational at best. Your main AOE heals are going to come from 2 things. 3 things, actually. So you're doing your Recuperative Nanotech. And then the next one is, because of the implants that you're using, your Toxic Haze actually does a heal. And then you've got this other big heal, which is your Kolto Waves. So what you want to do is you want to stack all 3 of these on top of each other, and that will just give you a really good sort of cuddle puddle for your group to be in while taking damage. Single target, your biggest heal that you want to keep on anybody who's important, like the tanks specifically, are these Kolto Probes. And you want to have 2 stacks of Kolto Probe on the tanks at all times, as much as you can. You can spot heal people with Kolto Probes if you want. Like if you see one of the DPSs taking a bunch of damage, you can target them, give them 1 or 2 of them, and then move off and go and heal somebody else. Something to keep in mind, these last, I think it's about 20 seconds. Yeah, it's 18, 19 seconds. In that time that these are timing out, you can refresh them in a few different ways. One way to refresh it is with Kolto Infusion. That just refreshed it there. Another way to refresh this is to hit it with a surgical probe. So I need a tactical advantage, but so she's almost expired. If I hit her with a surgical probe, that refreshes it. So what you can do then is tab around and spot heal people and just tab back to your tank. Take a look at where they are, and then if they are expiring here, you don't need to cast them again. You could just tap them with a surgical probe and that'll refresh it. Something to keep in mind though is that surgical probe will only refresh Kolto Probes if there's 2. If you have them fully, you can only stack them to 2. But if it's only 1, then this surgical probe will not refresh it. My understanding is that 1 would be refreshed by Kolto infusion, and we can actually try that now since, you know, we're here and we're going over like healing. So we're gonna let this expire, and I'll put 1 on, and then we'll see what refreshes it. So here's 1. Okay, and so now we'll let it time out a little, and then we'll see if our Kolto infusion refreshes that 1. Okay, see that? It did not refresh the 1, and now we'll try surgical probe, and that did not refresh the 1. So in order to get it to where it auto refreshes, you must stack them for 2. So that's your tank. So your tank gets 2. Maybe your off healer if he's taking a lot of damage. Maybe the off tank if they're taking a lot of damage. But now once they're stacked with 2, you don't need to spend a lot. That's only 5 energy in order to refresh that, as opposed to casting 2 new ones for 20. So it just allows you to manage your mana a lot better if you're refreshing it with either that. And then if they needed a big heal, this is a 20 energy hit, but this will also refresh it if you do your Kolto infusion. Kolto infusion is, like I said, it's a better heal to use than Kolto injection on an individual that's not yourself, because it will refresh this Kolto probe automatically. Now, if the group is taking a lot of damage, obviously here you hit yourself with the Kolto injection, and now we've got some AOE love going out. And I just want to show you guys that this Toxic Haze heal is no joke. It actually heals really well. There's 3 unique ticks of heal that go through this. So there's 1, there's 2, it's every 2 seconds, and there's the 3rd one. And now we just still wait for the cooldown to end. Now if you stack that with this Kolto waves, which goes, I believe it's every second, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. So we've got 4 ticks from Kolto waves, 3 ticks from Toxic Haze, and then watch, Recuperative Nanotech is even more. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 ticks. So obviously this is why Recuperative Nanotech is our go-to to keep it. We're using it on cooldown. Not only is it going to give us our stim boost back quicker, but it just does a lot of healing. And then for any group stuff, we're stacking Toxic Haze and Kolto waves. Wherever the most damage is occurring, we're going to hit with Nanotech. And then the tanks, if Shay was my tank, is going to get Kolto Probe. The off tank is going to get Kolto Probes. And then what I'm doing now for the group is I'm just throwing down these AOE heals. And then while I'm doing that, I go back to the tank. I look at this, and then I refresh the probes on her. If we need it, I target myself. I do this for a heal. I generate a tactical advantage. And now I throw down the heals. Go back to the tank. She's almost expired. I refresh that. And now I'm good to go on something else. I target myself. Maybe more of that. And then I go back to the tank. Target her. We need to refresh that. So there we hit it. Now that's refreshed. If she needed a bigger heal, there's that. I punch my stim boost. And now I'm good to go on the AOE stuff. And look, she's almost expired, so I punch that again. Then I come back and target myself, give myself one of these Kolto injections. And now I just basically continue doing this sort of a thing. We go back, we refresh that on her, and that allows us to basically manage this. Another thing to keep in mind while we're healing is if you run out of power, we have this adrenal probe that we want to punch, right? If that's not enough, then you can use your diagnostic scan. And so the diagnostic scan basically is it's a 1.8 second channel, and it does basically 4 ticks of a heal, I believe. So there's 1, 2, 3. All right, 1, 2, 3. So it's not 4, it's 3 ticks of a heal. But what this will do is help you regenerate mana. So what you could do if you ran out of mana and your adrenal probe was not up yet, you could target your tank and just basically spam this on them first for 1 or 2 channels until you get some mana back, enough at least to do your recuperative nanotech. And then as soon as you could punch your stim boost again, punch that, because that's going to help your alacrity, and alacrity will help you to get back your energy quicker. And then obviously putting down the toxic haze, because it basically sits on the ground as an AOE cuddle puddle, is something that you want to strive to do. Often it's only 15 energy. And so what we're going to do next is talk about something else. So we talked about most all of the heal abilities, but something that's really important to understand when you are healing, especially in a raid, is the ability that you have to cleanse. Cleansing is probably the most important thing that you have to understand conceptually as a healer, because it is one of the primary game mechanics that as a healer you need to deal with, other than the fact that you have to keep your group members alive. Toxic scan is really important because some fights will put these harmful but cleansable debuffs out on the group, and it's your job as the healer to remove these debuffs. You want to look at the icons that are affecting your character. So any negative, I can't demonstrate that to you now because I don't think I can hit Shay with a negative effect, but I can talk about, like, if she had a dot on her and I hit toxic scan, you can see it applied a little bit of a heal, and it would have cleansed up to 2 negative tech effects, mental or physical, and then it applies a small heal to the target. So it's not going to cleanse a force effect, but it will cleanse tech, mental, or physical effects. And because I'm on an operative, this goes every 10.4 seconds. Obviously, we need to have our bars set up so that we can see debuffs on all the party members. We'll talk about that when we actually do the Nefra fight. Something else to keep in mind when you're healing, if you, for some reason, you find that you're running low on tactical advantages, you can use your cloaking screen, and that will automatically generate for you when you come out of stealth 2 tactical advantages right there. So that's a quick way if you really need them to, you stealth out and then pop out of stealth, and you'll have 2 instantly, and that would allow you to do 2 abilities that are activated by tactical advantages, and then you could start rolling with the rest of your abilities again, and then you naturally generate them as you go. Certain abilities automatically generate them, like Kolto injection, for example. Sleep dart I have on here because they may ask you to put some, like elite mobs to sleep as you're moving through a dungeon, so it's good to have that on a bar. Obviously, you want to have exfiltrate on your bar always, because this will allow you to move out of danger. This is all standard stuff. You guys should know this. You should always have your interrupt on the bar in case you need to interrupt something that's occurring. It's going to likely be unusual for you to be tasked with interrupting something, but it's always just useful to have it on your bar anyway. You should get in the habit of having it on every character that you play, obviously. The same thing too, that you want to have your white bar enabled. Now, not so much for operations, but it's just in general. You want to have that secondary bar underneath your health so you can see whenever you are white barred, meaning that you are immune to being stunned or rooted because you've been stunned or rooted already a lot. That's more of a general guide than as opposed to a nightmare operations guide, but it's worth turning that on. And then you want to have your shield probe and your evasion on your bar so you can activate them along with your heal and your adrenal. And I do have fragmentation grenade if I need to like do any DPS, which like I said probably would not happen. I have my grenade here, but that's just on the like 0.001% chance that I'd need to actually do some DPS. The two other most important things you want on your bar are resuscitation probe. This will allow you to res an ally during a fight. So if the tank goes down during Nefra, immediately we are going to get them back up running this resuscitation probe. And then tactical superiority, that is a group-wide buff that sometimes the group master will call out for. So whoever is running your group might tell you to use tactical superiority at a specific moment in the fight in order to help everybody out, because it's going to give the raid group a boost. So that's something that you want to sort of save until you're asked to use it. But you definitely want to have your resuscitation probe easily accessible, and you want to be paying attention if a tank or another healer goes down, or maybe one of the DPS, and your raid leader says, hey, get that DPS up right now, then you can just resuscitate them. My understanding is that each healer has their own resuscitation, so you get 2, and then they go on to a 5-minute cooldown, so you have to plan out. Usually people will save both of them for the tanks, but sometimes they'll save one for a tank and they'll use one if a DPS or a healer went down for something stupid earlier. I can't think of anything else that we need to talk about other than the fact that learning about cleansing to remove harmful players from other is probably the most important thing I can tell you that as a healer you need to pay attention to. The sign of a good healer isn't that they can do 40k healing, it's that they, I mean, even though that's really good, it's that they know when to cleanse and they are on it immediately. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the fights. We will actually, using this build, this gear, go and run the Nefra and Dash nightmare fights. Alright, and this group is already in the quest, so I'm the slow one. I got added after everybody else is already there. So we want to make sure that we have the personal shield. I do. I have a bunch already on the bar. There's me just checking my, that was star parse, just to make sure that I'm parsing to see. Start taking the sandstorm damage immediately. So on a healer, we're going to basically put ourselves up against the wall here because Dash is going to do a slam on the ground that's going to knock us. We want to basically bounce off that wall behind us. I'm freeloading everybody. And now basically I'm just going to do what I was explaining to you guys before. I am cycling through my buffs, keeping stacks of my Kolto Probes on the tanks. There was that smash that knocked us against the wall, which is why I'm healing in that location. You can see the other GPS and the other healer are all grouped up near me, so my heals are hitting them. I'm basically stacking those two big AOE heals. And now I'll check the tank. I'm going to target myself and do my big heal. But you can see that I'm not using Kolto injection a lot. My main source of healing are the Kolto waves and the toxic haze, followed up by the recuperative nanotech that I'm keeping on myself. And then I'm spot healing and checking the tanks with my Kolto probe. I'm doing Kolto injection when I need it to generate a tactical advantage. I'm also using my stim boost on cooldown like I recommended to you, and recuperative nanotech on cooldown. I just keep checking all of the tanks just to make sure that they have my hots on them. That tank is taking a lot of burst damage, so I'm going to focus heal them with surgical probes, basically. Remember, the tactical I'm using gives me auto crits as long as they're below 50%, so... And if I have the tactical advantages, I can spam surgical probe. I'm doing a bit of mouse clicking. I do have everything on a Xbox controller. I play on an Xbox controller, so like I could do it without showing you the mouse clicks, but I purposely did mouse clicking in order to demonstrate like the buttons that I'm pressing so you can understand and how I'm placing the Kolto waves and the toxic haze on the field. You can see I just clicked off my shield probe because I was taking a lot of damage. Now I'm checking the tanks again. I highlight myself and I just did one of the big heals, the Kolto injection. And now I'm going to focus on the tank. He just went down, so I'm going to get him right back up immediately. I hit resuscitation probe. He's up. I'm going to put some hots on him because I know he's going to go back into the fight. And then we're going to focus on like getting a bunch of healing on the tank. So I put the recuperative nanotech on that tank specifically in order to make the healing haze around him. Remember, recuperative nanotech is our best. It's a really big, it does 10 ticks. And then I'll hit the group with my toxic haze and my Kolto waves. I just keep cycling through this, and this fight is not a quick fight. It takes a while, so you have to be in it. Now, I completely forgot to do my personal shield probe. I should have done it at 35, and it's already 43, so I'm taking a lot more damage. This is something that you want to pay attention to, because when the tank died, it shifted my attention, and I completely forgot about the shield. It's just something that happens when you're healing. You get into a zone, you're focused on keeping people alive, and having something unusual happen, like had that tank not died, I probably would have remembered. But because the tank died, I completely forgot. So now I'm at 49 stacks. I'm taking a lot of sandstorm damage, but my healing is enough that I'm able to mitigate it. And I'm also cycling through my shield probe and my evasion. So while it's not, I do not recommend that, you can see evidence that technically you can survive without using these shield probes. So I would not recommend it though, because I ended up taking way too much damage in this fight. And you can see that things start to get really sort of hairy, but luckily they down dash before anything else sort of falls apart. But you can see my health, it's just way too low. Like, and that's just because I didn't use my shield. So the parse on this fight, I uploaded to Parsley. I ended up doing close to 40,000 effective healing. I think the actual healing was like 58 or some ridiculous. It was a lot of healing, but it's on Parsley from on this character. If you look it up, you could probably find it. And then on this, we go to Nefra now. We have a pull. The first pull we fail. And I'm going to show you guys the first pull because this is something I think I want to illustrate as a healer, something you need to consider as a healer. I made the mistake. Usually when I heal, I'm healing on the left. For some reason, I guess it goes back to when I was actually on a raid team. They always used to put me on the left side of the frame. And so what happens in this first pull is I end up trying to heal the left side and try to cleanse the left side, but I am on the right side. So I end up I end up over healing the left and not healing my side or me enough. And so I also get tagged by some, I'm not sure why. I think because the tanks turned Nefra too early. So in this fight, the mechanics require that the tanks turn her to the group to take a Twin Nightmare attack. As the group, everybody has to take the Twin Nightmare attack. We all gather up. Usually the healers will put out an AOE heal during this, but if the tanks turn her too early, she will do, because she's constantly cleaving the two tanks, she will tank, like when the tanks turn her, she will cleave the group. We only want the twin attack to go on the group. We don't want her normal cleave to go on the group. So that's why tanks have to wait for it to turn to 15 and then they turn her. When I do the trash, I always pull the trash around the corner just so people don't get knocked off and die. But it's hard to sort of like organize that in a pug. So, you know, I'm just basically healing them wherever they pull them. But from an objective perspective, them making Toxic Haze into a heal is really, really helpful, like super useful. I'm use it all the time. So it is a great tactical, not tactical, pardon me, your implant. Like, I highly recommend picking up that implant. It's the aggressive treatment. There is another implant that you can pick up that will make your Toxic Haze completely free to cast, and I think it even then will grant you a tactical advantage when you do. But I found that using the Tactician, which gives you a 10% boost on all your healing, is sort of more useful. Just depends on what you're doing. So this is the first pull. Like I said, we get her the second pull, but I want you guys to see this first pull because I think that this is something to pay attention to. It's sort of like, as a healer, you can get into this sort of tunnel vision, and like I'm so used to being on the left side, I didn't realize that I was on the right side. And so here we go. We're gonna fight. I've got the heals. I'm standing exactly where I should. I'm in the group. I've got the heals rolling. I'm checking the tanks. I'm putting my hots on the tank for my Kolto Probes. And now that dot, you can see that's the cleanse. Well, I cleansed the left tank and now I'm focusing on the left frame. You can see, meanwhile, there's a dot burning on me that I didn't notice because I thought that was the other healer. So I finally get around to cleansing myself, but because of that, the tank in my group that I should have been watching is very low. So I finally am like, oh, I'm on the right side, not the left side, so I've got it. So here's the turn, and you can see how I believe that because I was so low, I took a lot of damage from one of her cleaves before they turned her back, and I wouldn't have died had I not been that low. But the reason I was that low was because I screwed up the cleanses in the first pull by focusing on the left side of the frame. So that's a really important thing. Like, as a healer, if you're used to doing something, each fight is going to be different. I just wanted you guys to see that because it's something that's really, I think it's just a human thing. We get into patterns and we do things a certain way, and then when little things change, we may not adapt it right away. So, but after this, I'm kind of like, I was examining like what was going on in the combat log, and then I'm like, you know, I realize it, and then I tell the group, hey, I'm sorry, I completely fucked that up because I'm used to being on the left side. So now I'm ready. Now I know, all right, I'm on the right side. My responsibility is that right row above me, including the tank that's on my row. That's the first priority for me to cleanse the tank in my row is number one. Me, that's number two, and then the two DPS. Those are 3 and 4. Now, some DPS are self-cleansing, some tanks are self-cleansing, but I don't care about that. A lot of groups will say, oh, we've got a self-cleansing tank. Bro, when I'm healing, I'm cleansing that tank. I'm not going to wait for them to cleanse. Now, sometimes they cleanse themselves fast enough that I'm like, okay, great, they cleanse themselves. I can cleanse myself now because I'm second. But I don't need to figure that out, because I'm always going to try to cleanse the tank because we need the tanks up. It's the most important thing. So I do my tank, I do me, and then technically my third option isn't the 2 DPS over me, it's the other tank. You know, it's my tank, me, and then the second tank. So you can see how I handle this fight now that I'm aware. So I put my HOTS on both of the tanks. We're checking them out. I put out my AOE heal. Here comes the first dot. We've got to cleanse it. I'm ready to go. I cleanse the first tank right there. And now I'm ready to cleanse myself. I'm doing an AOE heal on the group. There, I cleanse myself. The 2 DPS in my row cleansed. So that's great. And now I go back to focusing on keeping my heals going on the tank. Now I'm going to do my AOE for the group. And the dot's going to go out again, so I'm going to have to do the cleanses, so I'm getting ready. There, I'm ready for the tank cleanse now, and should be happening soon. He's taking a lot of damage, though, anyway, so there's the cleanse. I cleansed him. Now I'm putting out a group heal. I'm going to cleanse myself. The DPS in my row is great. They've been self-cleansing themselves, so I don't really need to worry about it. I'm going to get them, but the other healer did not cleanse the tank, so I cleansed it. I also cleansed their healer, and now there is one DPS who didn't self-cleanse, but the other healer got them. Need to focus on getting a bunch of heals on the tanks. And then there's the cleanse on my tank. I've got myself ready for my cleanse. There's my cleanse. One of the DPS in my row did not cleanse, so I'm going to get him. It looks like I got to help out the other healer, but the other healer got himself, so I'm going to go back to spot healing the tanks. Make sure that I have my HOTS in the tanks. Here's a big AoE on myself to get the group, and now we'll go back to focusing on the tanks. The dots will be coming out again soon. We're all stacked up, so I just did my evasion because of that. Now I'm going to cleanse the tank. Now I'm number 2 in this list here, so there's my cleanse, and now the third one is the third tank, and there it is. I've got to cleanse him because for some reason the other healer didn't get that tank, so I got that tank. I'm also going to spot heal them. I cleansed my DPS, and now I'm going to try to get the group up. There is somebody who still needs a cleanse, but the other healer got them. That's great. And now I'm watching the ground to make sure that I'm safe from that droid. I am safe, so I only have to shift a little bit. I've got to cleanse my tank. There it is. And now I'm going to cleanse myself. There's that. And then the next, I would cleanse the tank. But the other healer got the tank, so I'm going to cleanse DPS. And now I would go back to healing the tanks. This is very specific. Nefra is a tank and a heal check, right? So they're checking to make sure that you've got all of your ducks in a row for your heals. And it's not a DPS check at all. The DPS to kill Nefra is very low. But it's to check not your heal output so much as if you can do these cleanses, and you can see that we did it and we got her and we had success. Easy peasy. You guys can see. So now you've seen the gear that I'm using, the tactical, the implants. You see like the setup for my bar, the approach that I take mentally, like going in, the problems that I ran into and how I solved them. And I think that if you go at nightmare raiding sort of this way, that you will find that you'll achieve success. Obviously, you'll come up with your own unique way of handling problems that come up from you. And the other thing too to keep in mind very specifically is that while Nightmare Nefra and Nightmare Dash are very specific and very sort of technically difficult fights, there are a lot of other fights that are equally as challenging in much different ways. It just depends on whatever group that you guys are, whatever your group is progressing on, whatever the content is, whether you're doing hard mode progression or nightmare progression. Each fight will have a specific thing that you need to sort of think about. Some fights are just pure DPS challenges, like the dash fight, although it does require a significant amount of healing. Some fights are tank and heal checks, like Nefra. There's all the different bosses and all the different raids in SWTOR are all different, and they each have, like, I would encourage you to Google them, especially if you're doing nightmare stuff, to learn about the individual mechanics. And if you're healing, which fights you need to specifically focus on cleansing, where to stand, where not to stand, when to use your certain abilities and stuff like that. It can get very complicated and be very intricate, but I think it's a lot of fun. I raid healed in SWTOR for a long time.
Where are you going? Hunting for gold that is flowing. Somewhere in the cold world, here there is no knowing. Hey la, oh la la la. We love if there's a standing stone. Let's make camp. We love games. Let's make camp and play more games. Hey la, oh la la. We love games. There's a standing stone. Let's make camp. We love games. Let's make camp and play more games. Hey la, oh la la. We love games. Where are you going? There's no knowing what magic awaits, what evil is growing. Hey la, oh la la. We love games. There's a standing stone. Let's make camp. We love games. Oh la la. Hunting no crypts is folly. Just play games and be jolly. Magical treasures hide in the dark, so rest in it and bark. We love games. There's a standing stone. Let's make camp. We love games. Let's make camp and play more games. There's a standing stone. Let's make camp. We love games. Let's make camp and play more games. Hey la, oh la la. We love games. Hey la, Mary la, oh la 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 la. Oh la la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Hey la, oh la.